In the grand dining hall, sunlight streamed through the arched windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The long mahogany table was laden with an extravagant breakfast, but for me, Alina, it was a feast of ghosts. I sat in silence, my fork untouched, a phantom at my own family's table. My father, a man I once adored, cleared his throat, his voice laced with an unfamiliar hesitation. "Alina, darling, you've been so quiet since you woke up. Is everything all right?" I didn't look up. What was there to say? That I had already lived this life once before, that I had died cold and alone, abandoned by the very people now feigning concern. My older brother, James, chimed in, his tone light and teasing, just as it always was. "Come on, Lena, don't be so gloomy. It's a beautiful day to relive my nightmare." My gaze remained fixed on the intricate patterns of my porcelain plate. The real star of this family portrait, my adopted sister Sarah, was seated beside my father, basking in his attention. She giggled, a sound like tinkling bells that once charmed me but now grated on my soul. "Oh, father, don't worry about Alina. She's probably just tired. You know how she likes to be dramatic." The condescension was subtle. A poison dripped carefully into their ears over years, and they drank it down, every last drop. "I'm not being dramatic," I thought, the words a silent scream in my mind. "I'm remembering how you all watched me waste away, how you chose her over your own blood." Suddenly, a strange thing happened. My father's smile froze. James's hand, reaching for a pastry, stopped mid-air. Their eyes widened, a flicker of confusion and then dawning horror in their expressions. They looked at me, then at each other, as if they'd heard a ghost. But I was oblivious, lost in the torment of my resurrected memories. I didn't know it then, but the walls of my mind had just crumbled, and my innermost thoughts were now broadcasting to the two men who had betrayed me most. I remembered the fever, my mind echoed, a relentless tide of bitterness. I remember begging for a doctor, and you, Father, said I was overreacting. You were too busy planning Sarah's birthday trip to Paris. My father flinched, his face pallid. James dropped his fork with a clatter that seemed to shatter the silence. He stared at me, his mouth agape. "And you, James," my inner monologue continued. "You promised you'd visit, but Sarah needed help with her art project, didn't she? So you forgot all about your sick sister wasting away in her room." I saw the shock on their faces, but attributed it to the dropped fork. I was too consumed by my own silent litany of pain. Sarah, ever the opportunist, decided to create a diversion. With a theatrical gasp, she knocked over her glass of orange juice, the bright liquid spilling across the white tablecloth, staining it like a fresh wound. "Oh, clumsy me," she cried out, looking at me with wide, innocent eyes. "I'm so sorry, Alina. You startled me when you just stared so intensely. It was a classic Sarah move. Create a mess, then subtly pin the blame on me. In my past life, this would have earned me a scolding. My father would have sighed in exasperation, and James would have told me to be less intimidating. But this time was different. She did that on purpose. My inner voice narrated with chilling clarity. She nudged the glass with her elbow. "Watch, now she'll start crying and say I'm bullying her. She wants father to buy her that diamond bracelet she saw yesterday, and this little scene is the perfect way to get it." My father's gaze snapped from the stain on the cloth to Sarah. His eyes, now stripped of their paternal adoration, were sharp and analytical. He saw the slight, almost imperceptible quiver of her lip that preceded her crocodile tears. He saw the flicker of calculation in her eyes before the waterworks began. James, too, was watching Sarah not as a beloved sister, but as a stranger, as a con artist. "Remember all the accidents," my mind continued, a merciless prosecutor. "The broken heirloom vase she blamed on me. The lost concert tickets for the show I wanted to see. It was always her. Always her, pulling the strings, making you love her more and despise me. You were so blind." Tears started to well in my father's eyes. Not for Sarah, who was now dabbing at her dry cheeks with a napkin, but tears of profound, soul-crushing regret. James looked like he was going to be sick. The image of the doting family man and the carefree older brother was shattering before my very eyes. Sarah's performance faltered. She looked from my father's devastated face to my brother's disgusted one. The sympathy she expected wasn't coming. Only a thick, suffocating silence filled with an unspoken truth she couldn't comprehend. Panic began to dawn on her face. What had gone wrong? Her tried and true method was failing spectacularly. The game had changed, and she didn't even know the new rules. I had seen enough. This room, this family, was a cage I had no intention of staying in. I placed my napkin neatly on the table and pushed my chair back, the sound scraping loudly in the tense silence. I stood up, my back straight, my head held high. For the first time, I felt a sliver of power, a sense of control I had never known. "Where are you going, Alina?" My father's voice was a choked whisper. "Please, sit down. We need to talk." His face was a mess of remorse, a mask of agony I had once yearned to see. Now it meant nothing. "Lena, please," James begged, his voice cracking. He stood up, reaching a hand toward me. "We're so sorry. We were fools. We were so wrong. Please, just give us a chance to make it right." They were finally apologizing. The words I had screamed for in the dark, lonely nights of my previous life were finally being spoken. But they were too late. A lifetime too late. I didn't say a word out loud. I didn't need to. My final thoughts on the matter delivered the verdict. An apology. My inner voice scoffed, cold and sharp as ice. "You think an apology can mend a soul that you let shatter? Some wounds never heal, and some people don't deserve a second chance." I saw the last shred of hope die in their eyes as they heard my silent judgment. It was as if I had physically struck them. My father staggered back, clutching his chest. James's hand fell to his side, defeated. I turned my back on them, on the lavish breakfast, on the years of neglect and pain. I didn't look at Sarah, whose face was now a mask of pure confusion and terror as her perfect world crumbled around her. I walked toward the grand archway, each step lighter than the last. Behind me, there was only silence. The heavy, deafening silence of regret, the quiet, frantic rustling of a snake shedding its skin. I walked out into the sunlight, not as a victim returning to her past, but as a survivor leaving it all behind. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.